All right, so are you ready to dive into this merger?
Absolutely. Always exciting to see what's shaking up the health and wellness world.
Yeah, for sure. And this one's a biggie. We're talking Stemtech Corporation merging with Secret Direct slash Viago.
Yeah, quite the combo, isn't it? Definitely raises some eyebrows.
It does. And we're going to break it all down for you. We've got the press releases and some background info. And let me tell you, there's a lot to unpack here. This isn't just like some little business deal.
No, not at all. I mean, just on the surface, you've got this really interesting convergence of science and lifestyle. That alone has some pretty big implications.
Exactly. So let's start with the basics just to make sure everyone's on the same page.
It's all good.
So Stemtech, they're the ones focused on these STEMceutical products. They were founded in 2018, but they're kind of building on what Stemtech International started, which was way back in 2005.
Yeah, and Stemtech International had a pretty impressive track record, right? 4 appearances on the Inc., 5,000 fastest growing companies list between 2010 and 2015. Not too shabby.
No, not at all. It shows they know how to make a splash in the wellness market. But then you've got Secret Direct, Viago. They're coming at it from a whole different angle, more of a lifestyle company.
Right. They've got their fingers in a lot of pies, travel deals, vacation experiences, skincare, nutrition products. They seem to be all about creating this holistic experience for their members through their CL Love Viago.
And they're pushing this idea of providing the quote-unquote highest standard of quality assurance and value for members. Sounds pretty fancy.
It does. And what's really caught my eye is their strategy of localizing their offerings. They're not just expanding, they're adapting to different markets,
Yeah.
which tells me they've got some pretty ambitious global growth plans.
Okay, so we've got a science-focused company and a lifestyle-focused company merging. Why?
I think you have to look at the big picture here. The health and wellness industry is changing. It's not just about individual products anymore. People are looking for complete solutions.
So it's like, instead of just buying vitamins, they want a whole personalized plan, something that covers all the bases.
Exactly. They want support, community even, maybe even a sense of belonging.
So this merger, it's about more than just slapping two companies together and offering a bigger catalog of products.
Right. It's about creating this whole ecosystem where cutting-edge science meets carefully curated lifestyle experiences. That's the idea anyway.
I'm starting to see the vision here. It's like they're trying to change how we think about healthy living altogether.
Exactly. It's less about isolated products, more about this integrated approach to well-being.
Okay, so now the nitty-gritty. How are they actually making this merger happen?
Well, from a financial standpoint, Stemtech is issuing 13 million preferred shares at $2.50 a pop to finalize the deal.
So that's a significant chunk of change.
Yeah, but hold your horses. It's not 100% final just yet. Still got to go through the usual hoops, audits, approvals, all that legal jazz.
Oh, of course, the fine print. Always fun.
If you're into that sort of thing, you can actually find the full press release on OTC Markets. We'll include the link in the show notes for anyone who wants to really dive in.
Perfect. So they're bringing together science and lifestyle. But how is this going to work in the real world? What impact will this have on, like, everyday people? That's what I'm really curious about.
Right. Well, they're calling it get this, a vertically integrated powerhouse.
What?
Yeah, no, it sounds like something out of a business school textbook.
Totally. So break it down for us normal folks. What does that actually mean?
Well, essentially it means they'll have more control over, everything from researching and developing products to manufacturing them, marketing them, even distributing them. It's like a farm-to-table concept, but for wellness.
So they control the whole process from start to finish. Got it. And what are the benefits of that? Why should we care?
Well, think about it. If they're controlling every step, they can potentially offer higher quality products, maybe even at lower prices, who knows?
Now that's something I can get behind. What else?
It also makes them more responsive to what customers want. They can adapt their offerings more quickly, get new products out there faster.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and don't forget about their plan to tailor their offerings to different parts of the world. That regionalized versioning of benefits thing we touched on earlier, that's a game changer.
Remind me what that means again. How would they actually tailor their offerings to, say, Asia versus Europe?
Well, imagine this. In Asia, where skincare is huge, they might launch a line of, stem cell-based anti-aging products, specifically formulated for Asian skin types. Or, for European retirees, maybe they create travel packages that focus on wellness retreats. It's about understanding what different customers want and giving them exactly that.
So it's not one size fits all. It's more like a bespoke suit tailored to each region's needs and desires.
Exactly. And this personalization ties into another fascinating aspect of this whole merger, the potential impact on Stemtech's revenue. They're projecting to, get this, double their revenue by 2025.
Whoa, that's a bold prediction. What makes them so confident they can pull that off?
Well, they're banking on a couple of things. First, they're already on a pretty good growth trajectory individually. So they believe that combining forces will just, accelerate that growth even more.
Okay, so they're riding the wave, but even bigger now.
Exactly. And second, they're counting on these, what they call cost synergies. Basically, they think they can save a bunch of money by streamlining their operations once they're merged.
So it's a combination of growing the pie and making each slice bigger and more efficient.
That's the idea. But, of course, it's not all sunshine and roses. Merging two companies, especially ones with such different backgrounds, can get messy.
Oh, I bet. So what kind of challenges do you think they might bump into along the way?
Well, we'll dive into all that in the next part of our deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just say integrating two different company cultures, aligning business processes, it's not always a walk in the park.
I'm sure it's not. And what about the competition? The health and wellness market is already jam-packed. How do they plan to stand out from the crowd? That's what I'm wondering.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's one we'll explore in more depth after the break. We'll look at the competitive landscape, the potential risks and rewards for investors, and what this whole shebang could mean for the future of the industry as a whole. It's going to be a wild ride.
Hold on tight, folks, because this is just the beginning. We'll be right back to continue unpacking this fascinating merger and what it all means for you.
Do you want a deep dive podcast like this? Contact Bull Run by Charlie DeVanzo.
Welcome back. So we left off talking about the challenges this new company might face. And I gotta say, the competition in the health and wellness space is fierce.
Oh yeah, it's a crowded market for sure. Everybody and their brother seems to be selling some kind of wellness solution these days.
Exactly. So how do Stemtech and Seacret Direct, or should we say the merged company, how do they plan to stand out? And they're talking about doubling their revenue in just a couple of years. That's a tall order.
It is. But I think they're banking on this idea that by combining forces, they'll create something truly unique.
So it's not just 1 + 1 = 2, it's more like 1 + 1 = something bigger and better.
Precisely. They're hoping for what you might call synergy. Stemtech brings their scientific expertise in stem cell technology to the table.
And Seacret Viago brings their established network and brand recognition, plus all their lifestyle offerings.
Right. So they're not just selling products, they're selling a whole new approach to wellness, a whole concept.
But isn't that what everyone's doing these days? Trying to sell a concept, a lifestyle. How will they differentiate themselves? What makes them different?
Well, for one thing, they're emphasizing expertly curated offerings. It's not just about throwing a bunch of random stuff together. It's about creating a carefully selected ecosystem of products and services that really complement each other.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Paint me a picture. What kind of expertly curated offerings are we talking about here? Give me some examples.
Sure. So imagine personalized wellness programs that combine, say, stem cell-based therapies with tailored nutrition plans, fitness routines, maybe even mindfulness practices.
Okay, so it's like a holistic, customized approach.
Exactly. They could even create travel experiences that are focused on wellness, immersive retreats that incorporate stem cell treatments and rejuvenation therapies. It's not just about sightseeing, it's about enhancing your well-being.
So it's like a one-stop shop for all your health and lifestyle needs, but with this added layer of stem cell science woven throughout.
You got it. And by integrating Stemtech's expertise into this broader lifestyle context, they're tapping into a market that's really starting to take off.
Right, it's not just about living longer anymore. It's about living better, feeling younger for longer.
Exactly. And this brings us back to that whole regionalized versioning of benefits thing. We talked about how they plan to tailor their offerings to different markets around the world.
Yeah, remind me how that would actually work in practice. What would those regionalized offerings look like?
Okay, so let's say in Asia, where skincare is booming, they might develop a line of stem cell-based anti-aging creams. But they'd be specifically formulated for Asian skin types and marketed through Seacret Direct's existing channels in the region.
Interesting. And what about a different market like North America?
Well, in North America, there's a huge emphasis on personalized wellness, right? So they could create custom programs that combine stem cell therapies with lifestyle coaching and nutritional guidance. It's all about understanding what resonates with each specific market.
This is starting to sound pretty impressive, I gotta say. But let's be real for a second. Merging two companies like this with different cultures and ways of doing things, it can't be easy. What kind of bumps in the road do you see them hitting?
You're absolutely right. Merging cultures can be a huge challenge. Stemtech is very science-driven, while Seacret Viago has more of a lifestyle and community focus. Blending those two mindsets, creating a cohesive company culture, that's going to be a tough one.
It's like trying to mix oil and water, right? It can be done, but it takes a lot of skill and finesse.
Precisely. And then there's always the risk of overestimating those cost synergies. Sometimes merging operations doesn't save as much money as companies initially project.
Right, so it's not just about cutting costs, it's about doing it strategically and making sure those savings actually translate into profits.
Exactly. And of course, there's always the challenge of managing expectations. They've set some pretty ambitious goals for themselves, and if they don't deliver, investors might get nervous.
So they're walking a tightrope here. They need to be ambitious to attract investors and capture market share, but they also need to be realistic and manage those expectations carefully.
Absolutely. And all of this plays into the bigger question. How will this merger impact the health and wellness industry as a whole?
Yeah, that's what I'm really curious about. Could this actually change the game? Could it reshape how we think about health and wellness?
It has the potential to, for sure. If they can successfully integrate their offerings, create something truly unique and compelling, they could set a new standard for the entire industry.
So paint me a picture of that future. What would that look like?
Imagine a world where personalized wellness programs that incorporate cutting-edge science become the norm, where travel is designed to enhance your well-being, where healthy aging is not just a dream, but an attainable reality.
That sounds pretty amazing, but there are a lot of ifs there. What are the key factors that will determine whether they succeed or fail?
Well, first and foremost, they need to execute on their integration plans. They've got to create a unified company culture, streamline their operations, and manage their costs effectively.
So it's all about the nuts and bolts, the execution.
Right. And then there's the marketing and branding. They need to tell a compelling story, connect with consumers on an emotional level.
So it's not just about the science, it's about the heart, the feeling.
Exactly. And finally, they need to be adaptable. The health and wellness industry is constantly changing, so they need to be able to stay ahead of the curve, anticipate trends, and innovate.
It sounds like they have their work cut out for them. But if they can pull it off, the rewards could be huge. Not just for the company, but for consumers who might benefit from this new approach to wellness.
Absolutely. But before we get too carried away with the potential future, we need to talk about the financial side of things. Remember those ambitious revenue projections?
Oh yeah, let's not forget about the money.
Well, there are some important details we need to unpack about how those projections might impact investors and the company's overall financial health.
That's a crucial piece of the puzzle, for sure. After all, mergers are ultimately about business. So let's dive into the numbers and see what we can learn about the risks and rewards for investors.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we've talked about the companies, the strategy, the potential challenges. Now let's get down to the nitty-gritty, the money. What about those financial projections? What could they mean for investors?
Right, that's the big question, isn't it? Remember, they're aiming to double, maybe even more, their revenue by 2025.
Yeah, and we all know projections can be, well, optimistic sometimes. So how do they plan to actually achieve that kind of growth? What's the game plan?
Well, their projections are based on two main things. First, they believe the merger will just naturally speed up the growth that both companies were already experiencing individually.
So basically, they're stronger together, 1 + 1 = 3, that kind of thinking.
Exactly. They're hoping for that synergy. But it's not just about growing bigger. It's about becoming more efficient, too. And that's where the second factor comes in, or what they call cost synergies.
Cost synergies, right. We hear that a lot with mergers, but what does it actually mean in this case?
It means they believe that by merging operations, they can streamline things, get rid of redundancies, and ultimately save money.
So the two-pronged approach, growing the pie and also making sure each slice is as big and cost-effective as possible. Makes sense. But is it realistic? Or is this just, hype to attract investors?
Well, that's the million-dollar question with any merger, right? I mean, it's important to remember these are just projections. A lot can change between now and 2025. But I will say, the fact that they're focusing on both growth and cost reduction is a good sign.
It shows they're thinking strategically, long-term, not just about a quick buck.
Exactly. It suggests a more balanced and strategic approach, which is definitely a plus for investors. But, of course, there are always risks.
Yeah, no investment is without risk. So what are some of the potential red flags that investors should keep in mind with this merger?
Well, like we discussed before, merging two companies with different cultures and ways of doing business, it can be tricky. There's always the risk of clashes, delays, unexpected costs.
And what about the competitive landscape? Can this new company really make a dent in the already crowded health and wellness market?
That's going to be a major challenge for sure. They need to really nail their messaging, convince consumers that they're offering something unique and valuable. If they can do that, they have a real shot. But it's not going to be easy.
So there's potential for big rewards, but also some significant risks. What's the bottom line for investors? What should they be thinking about as they decide whether or not to invest in this merged company?
I think the key is to look beyond the hype, the projections, and really dig into the fundamentals. Do they have a solid management team? Are they addressing a real market need? Do you believe in their long-term vision?
It's about separating the signal from the noise, right?
Exactly. And of course, diversification is always key. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Solid advice. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. The companies, the merger, the potential, the challenges, and the financials. What's your final takeaway? What do you want our listeners to remember?
For me, this merger really highlights how the health and wellness industry is evolving. It's moving towards this more holistic approach, integrating science, lifestyle, and personalization.
And whether the specific merger is a success or not, it raises some really interesting questions about the future of wellness. What does it mean to live well? How can we age gracefully? What role will technology play?
It's a fascinating time to be following this space, that's for sure.
Absolutely, and we hope this deep dive has given you plenty to think about as you navigate your own wellness journey. So until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep exploring all the exciting possibilities that the world of health and wellness has to offer.
Do you want a deep dive podcast like this? Contact Bull Run by Charlie DeVanzo.